列伝不良文字直心人心検証成仏 A separate transmission outside of doctrine, not founded on words or letters, pointing directly at human mind, seeing nature, becoming Buddha. Here we are at Golden-Wind, and I recall the words I spoke yesterday about returning to the essential. Returning to the essential, and then we end up here doing this kind of elaborate ceremony. And we might think, oh, how foolish is that? There are many things here that we might call inconvenient. And you might even think that some of the inconvenience is purposeful. Somebody plotting here to expose us to it. Well, it's a long tradition, but it's not a tradition of torturing people, but it's a tradition of offering the proper opportunities to experience our limits. It's very easy to live in the world with a really nicely fattened up ego, as long as we don't run into anything that makes it feel it's overweight. It's inflation. Really, it's inflation because most of it is hot air. It has nothing to do with weight. Just. But that's completely different. It's completely different if somebody is pompous from that kind of point of stance, or if we are here celebrating, performing a ceremony for Bodhidharma, the Bodhidharma commemoration. I think I said it yesterday with those of you who came to the Kaisando, to the Doksan room for Shoken. It's not about the frills. It's not about the form. It's about the essence. Yet that does not mean that these formal expressions are not worthwhile. But they must be the authentic expression of that essence. Otherwise, they are just like this ego, just inflated. But if we fill it with our spirit, with our heart, with our aspiration for ourselves, aspirations for this world, for this society, already some change has happened. We're not asking anyone for anything. It's not like a prayer for X, Y, or Z that we receive for extending this kind of ceremony. No, it is a duly and deeply felt expression of gratitude. In this case, to Bodhidharma. So did you pay attention? What did we offer? Did we offer something?
Tea.
Yeah, but not just the regular old kind of tea that we get served. It was matcha. Really nice whipped up matcha. And then it is offered by purifying it over the smoke of the incense, that little wafer of wood that is so fragrant. Dissolving our idea of separation between the worldly realm and the realm wherever Bodhidharma might be right now. Where we are in the moment when we completely are the essence. So that was the tea. Then something else?
Fruit.
Yeah, there's this tray sitting on the right-hand side. So there's a whole meal. Every memorial service, the departed is offered food, real food. There's miso soup in there, there's some vegetables, we have rice, we have greens, and what else do we have, Muken Sensei? Takuan. What is takuan?
Pickled radish.
Yeah, it's a pickled radish, named after Takuan Soho, a monk in the Rinzai tradition who lived around the time of the famous Miyamoto Musashi. He was an interesting character, Takuan Soho. So that is offered to the departed person. And then, as Kanchi Daishi said, fruit. And on the other side we have some sweets. All of that is offered with incense, light, and with the chanting of the great compassionate Dharani. We offer that great compassion. And after it, Ino-san chanted the dedication in the Japanese version, which we don't hear so often here. But it basically says, offering incense, light, tea, a meal, fruit, and sweets. We dedicate this chanting and this ambition we have to Bodhidharma and all beings in the 10,000 realms, in the 3 worlds, everywhere. A very interesting way of doing it, because should we believe that there is anything generated through our chanting, such as good energy or vibes, and I hope you can feel that when we chant, when we really get together, that these kind of vibes exist. And right after, what do we do with it? We give it all away. We give it all away. A very great teaching. Nothing to hold on to, nothing to accumulate. Everything to be passed on without exception, without holding on to it. Now, who is this? Who are we commemorating?
Bodhidharma.
Who is that?
He brought the Dharma east, west, east.
South, north, all good answers. Bodhidharma. Bodhidharma is kind of a, how shall we say? It's again a transmigration, you know. Bodhidharma was born in India, and he brought the Zen tradition, as it is said, from subcontinental India to China. Is there really such a person? Do we know for sure that Bodhidharma existed? We don't know. Was he the 28th ancestor in the Indian patriarch lineage? We don't know exactly, but okay, well, let's believe it. We like stories, don't we? He left one of his shoes in India, so he couldn't have walked. He didn't walk. Remember how he got to China? Yeah, on the boat, over the ocean, all around. And what did our friends in China call him? A barbarian, right? A barbarian. What does the word barbarian mean?
Primitive.
That's what the meaning has become, yeah. Yeah, but even the word barbarian goes back to the word barba. What is barba? Beard. Yeah, beard, because these bearded people who came. What about Bodhidharma's beard? Does Bodhidharma have a beard? Isn't there a koan about that? Yes, of course there's a koan about Bodhidharma's beard. So Bodhidharma came to China, and there he became the founding figure of this Zen tradition. The OG, right, of Zen. The original gangster of Zen. That's Bodhidharma. He appears everywhere. And I started by reading some of his verses that describe the Zen tradition. And I posted them on the board. I don't know if you had a chance to look at them because I had them removed very quickly. I put them on plate and I took them down early. And what it says on there, 4 times 4 characters, Kyoge Betsuden, a separate transmission outside of doctrine. This is how supposedly Bodhidharma described this Zen tradition. Now, not just thinking of this Zen tradition as a spiritual tradition, as a tradition of forms, as a tradition of teachings and so on. We all remember that this transmission of something goes back to the very instance of 2 human beings passing between them this common understanding, this common realization, and the common actualization of awakening. I'll give you a chance while I drink a little water to remember when, where, who. Maybe you remember. Anyone? Mumonkan case 6 describes it. It is the interaction between the historical Buddha and Mahakashyapa. Seison Nenge. The Buddha holds up and twirls a flower. It happens on the mount, the Vulture Peak. It's where all the bhikkhus and probably bhikkhunis were sitting. And Shakyamuni holds up the flower and twirls it in his finger. Everybody remained silent, but Mahakashyapa, what did he do?
Smile.
He broke out in this big smile. Misho, Misho, in the big smile. And at this moment, according to the legend, Shakyamuni said, "You're it." He said it in a little different words. He spoke about himself. "I have the great eye of the treasure, the eye of the treasury, blah, blah, blah." So it's quite elaborate. But what he basically said to Mahakashyapa is this transmission, this very transmission. And it is Kyoge Betsuden. Kyo is the character for teaching, for also, teaching is good. Buddha teaching, Bukkyo, Kyo. But also Kyo as in learning, like in a book that has a specific topic in it, is a Kyokaso. So, Kyoge, ge is outside of doctrine. What happened between the Buddha and Mahakashyapa was not based upon any sutra. It was a wordless transmission. So, Kyoge Betsuden, Betsu is separate, and Den is transmission. A separate transmission outside of doctrine. What it points to is what we are doing here has nothing to do with any one of us sitting down and studying in books. It has nothing to do with understanding this language, that language, being able to translate, being able to intellectualize about it. There is a separate transmission that goes beyond it. It doesn't mean, of course, that looking at the sutras, looking at the writings, at the expressions of those human beings who had that kind of understanding is not worthwhile doing. However, it will never replace yourself having tasted it. And this tasting, this being able to tell if the water is hot or cold yourself, is the essence of this practice. Kyoge Betsuden. It's like the wordless transmission of life. It's nothing to do with intellection. We all were conceived somehow in various ways, and which way it doesn't matter. There is a transmission there that is wordless, where no sutras, not even the Kama Sutra, are required. The second set of 4 characters is Furyo Monji. Some places it's also pronounced without the end, so Furyo Moji. Not founded on words or letters. Again, the same point that I just made before. It is not about reading. It is not about writing. It is not about conceptualizing. It has to be embodied. Here is Golden Wind, Tairo Kimpu. These 4 words by Ummon Bunen Zenji. The first character, Tai, is Karara, is body. Ro is revealed. So it is embodied embodied in this moment. In this body, no matter how much you might dislike the feelings of that body, especially when it hurts. So that's Kyogebetsu then, Furyo Moji. Sometimes written on the Han is the next set of 4 characters. Jiki-shin, Jin-shin. Jiki is the same character as in Jiki-jitsu. Jiki-shin, pointing straight at. Pointing straight at. Jin-shin. Jin is person, hito. And shin is heart, mind, kokoro. Pointing directly at human heart, mind. Everything in the realm before words, in the realm of intuition, in the realm of perception, directly points to that human mind. Not with words again. When we hear the Han, no words. Directly pointing at that human mind, at that human heart, at that essence that becomes one, that is one with the sound, that feels and perceives the time and the space, without ever having to be told anything, without intellection. It's not about, it is very direct. So whatever you can feel here, feel it unmitigated, unadulterated, just as it is, raw. The last 4 characters, Kensho Jōbutsu. Well, here's Kensho. Kensho you probably read about. It really just means, Ken is miru, to see. I always thought it was an eye on a pair of legs. That's what the character looks like. But maybe the eye doesn't walk. But there is this element of the eye that sees, show, nature. Often if it's translated as self-nature, to see into the self-nature. Kensho. Seeing one's own nature requires this openness that allows this direct pointing at our mind, heart. An openness that at times can feel quite vulnerable. It is not easily arrived at. It is like the trees that shed their leaves And some of them are beautiful, beautiful, but even the most beautiful colored leaf eventually will be blown off. It will fall, going from one side to the other, showing its front and showing its back. The falling autumn leaves, that is the death poem of Matsuo Basho. Ura o mise, omote o misete, chiru momiji. Seeing into the nature, letting everything fall, letting everything go down to the bare, whatever there is to be bare. Becoming Buddha. So this Jōbutsu, don't think of it as really becoming something. It is the realization, the embodiment that from the very beginning, all sentient beings are Buddha. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? We haven't chanted it this time, this session yet, but remember, Shujo Honrai Hotoke Nari. Fundamentally, all sentient beings are Buddha. So do you think Bodhidharma was a fun guy? No. I mean, he traveled for leisure, didn't he? He took the cruise from India to China. And there he had a room that he had rented for how many years? 9 years. A cave. A cave in a mountain where later a temple was founded. The temple Shorinji. Little forest temple. And there in that cave, according to the legend, Bodhidharma sat facing the wall, facing the rock for 9 years. Mempeki kunen. Men, face, hiki, the face of the stone of a mountain. Kunen, 9 years. So even though he already brought this teaching that was transmitted outside of the doctrine to China, he still sat down and did a little zazen. 9 years. And if you go and you see traditional monasteries, at times you will see that, for example, nowadays in the Soto tradition, you still face the wall. And interestingly, most people think, oh yeah, that's the difference between Soto and Rinzai. And when somebody said that to my ordination teacher, Joshu Roshi said, no, not true. Not true. If there's a very formal occasion where Rinzai monks come together, they also face the wall. The facing inward across the zendo is actually a less formal way of sitting. So there he sat for 9 years. And what happened in those 9 years? Well, he got tired, right? According to the legend, he got so tired that he took a knife, and what did he do? Yeah, he cut his eyelids off. And they fell on the ground. And according to the legend, out of those eyelids that fell and his eyelashes that were there too. What grew?
Tea.
The tea bush. The tea bush. That's what the legend says. And so that's why monks were allowed to drink tea, to keep themselves awake. I'm glad he cut off his eyelids and not other kind of parts of skin. I don't know if the tea would taste that well. So that's what he did. What happened to his arms and his legs? Well, in Japan it is said that they shriveled off. They fell off. You don't believe me? Yes, that's what happened. He ended up looking like this. There he is. He's looking at me. Turn around. Ah, look at that. No arms, no legs. Hariko, right? Paper dolls. Old Chinese tradition. It actually started with shukoshi. Shukoshi, there was a doll that had on the bottom like a triangular kind of thing, and you turned it like a dreidel in China, and it was a drinking game. And then the dreidel would spin, and then it would fall, and eventually it would zip. It would point at somebody, and that person then had to do something in the game. And that is where these Bodhidharma, these Dharma dolls came from. No arms, no legs. And also no eyes, originally. No eyes. You buy them without eyes. You fill the eyes in and you give them life. And according if where you put the eyes, it could be a happy Dharma, or it could be an angry-looking one, like the one we have up here. You know, he's looks like somebody who is complaining in a restaurant. But it teaches something else that is very important in this practice. This Zen OG here tells us, it says, Nanna korobi ya oki. Fall down 7 times. Get up 8. Same in this practice here. We might stumble, we might fall onto our faces, but just like this little Oki Agari Dharma, always coming up again, always sitting up straight. So if you find yourself on the cushion falling asleep, look at this little legless, armless creature. Tells you, fall asleep 7 times, wake up 8. This is the kind of determination that we can learn from Bodhidharma. The directness, how it points not to some kind of elusive thinking model, to something that has to be gained, that has to be refined, and so on, by cognition, by knowledge, by studying. That's all helpful, but it is stale unless we develop exactly the kind of center of gravity as this little Bodhidharma doll. So that even if something knocks us over, it could be our own thinking, it could be our own feeling, that we have discovered that center of gravity, that in the end, after 7 times falling over, makes it possible to rise again. It's the activity of Dharma, just like breathing. Breathing even shows it better than falling and getting up, because it's inevitable that we can only follow the exhalation for so long. It will come to an end. There is no more possibility to exhale. But our mind might want to tell us, well, I really had it with exhalation. From now on, I will only inhale. Same thing. Try it out. So, when you find yourselves in these 7 days that we will spend here, being knocked down by your own thoughts, being stuck at this kind of direction or that kind of direction, don't get consumed by the content of this activity. Don't watch the show. Study the TV. How it works. How it works. And that reveals a lot of things. I don't want to break it to you, but most of the things that are shown on TV are not real. And it's the same with most of the things that we think. They are not real. We turn it into reality the moment we believe that it is reality. And already, as it said in our reading this morning of Sosan Kanchi Senji's unbelieving in mind or faith in mind, Shinjin Mei, and 1/10 of an inch of difference. And heaven and earth are set apart. What does it mean not to have that 1/10 of a difference? That 1/10 of an inch. Again, return to the you don't have a chance to have any kind of distance. Not even a chance. So before we close, I will briefly speak about non-duality. So since this is recorded, we have to give credit to our co-star here, Bodhidharma. Watch. Sees everything. Non-duality, faith in mind, talked about it. Non-duality, as long as we think about it, it's dual. And there's a kind of a very common misconception, mainly the concept that non-duality is some kind of a special feeling. But it is not a special feeling or anything. It is just a presence, a being with an embodiment of what is, without reference to anything else. In other words, non-duality doesn't mean that there is not dark and light, that there is not cold and hot. Non-duality means When it's hot, it's hot. When it's cold, it's cold. When it's light, it's light. When it's dark, it's dark. But what it requires us is to be with that hot, with that cold, with that darkness, with that light, 100%, so that there is no room to any comparison, any reference to any preference. I don't like dark, I don't like light, it's too hot, it's too cold. No, it's just the full presence with what unfolds. That's what non-duality is. The sun will set, it will get dark. That's what our experience has taught us. And when it's dark, you know what it is? It is just dark. That's why Sosang Ganchi speaks about not having preferences, or indicating that when we have a preference, we cut everything into two. We create an opposite instead of learning, and that's what we are doing here, what we are learning, to be fully with, fully present, without a need to compare, without any referential, not only preferential, but also referential mind. We don't have to call it anything. When it's dark, it's just... We don't have to say anything about it. We don't have to think anything about it. Just this. That's how we can get closer and closer to this non-duality. And that is the essence of Jobutsu, of truly manifesting that Buddha mind, the Buddha nature of what is. That's what we're here to do. That's what we're here to learn as an essential, fundamental ability of being with the moment. But even this doesn't last. Then we have to get up. And we see, oh yeah, it is hot. Yeah, it's because that cloth over there is on fire. Then comparison. Then action comes into the most important thing to do. Again, there is no separation. There is no one-sidedness. Neither can we reside in non-duality, nor should we be stuck in duality. We have to learn to be like Bodhidharma, who came from India, went to China. To transform from one way to the next, back and forth and back and forth, but always be who and what we are in the moment. If we think too much with the cloth on fire, the whole temple will burn down. But again, if we spring into action and extinguish that fire, one-minded application of the essential nature of our heart-mind will be manifest. All right. Never forget, this is a limited engagement. I'm not talking about the Sesshin. I'm talking about our lives. Whenever you see a stick of incense, think of it. This represents what it means to be alive. It has a specific length, It's burning down. Let's burn it as hot as we can, to the very end. And if we do that well, the scent will linger. This world will have changed. We will have left conditions that can help this world become a place that is not just so awfully divided, that does not want to engage in warfare. Wouldn't that be nice? Prerequisite is to look at our own nature. This humanity is transmitted. It's a separate transmission outside of doctrine. It doesn't matter what we believe. It doesn't matter what kind of thing we believe in or how we call our culture, what language we speak. This is the separate transmission that we ought to fully embody. Not founded on words or letters, on identities, on pronouns, on this or that orientation, not necessary. Pointing directly at the human heart as compassionate beings of light, we see our own nature. And by shining fully and bright, we all will discover that we've been Buddhas all along.